layoff of nearly 3 months, the Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, roars back to life this weekend for the first of 4 events over the next 8 weeks. Hello from gorgeous Road America. My name is Ryan Marine. Calvin Fish is alongside in the broadcast booth, and Amanda Busick is down in the pit lane. We get set to go qualifying for 2 races here this weekend at America's National Park of Speed. Beautiful racetrack, beautiful setting, and one of the favorites from fans and drivers alike, Calvin. Any chance to get to Road America is to be savored.
Well, it's always a treat to be here on site, and as you look at those beautiful pictures right now, you look at the racetrack, though, a little bit damp. We had some rain early this morning. It dried out for the Sprint X qualifying session. Right at the end there, we saw some very fast lap times. Expect the same here, so they're going to be keeping those Pirellis in those tire warmers as long as they can, try and throw those on the race car at the last possible moment. And it's a short qualifying session with 4-mile track, over 2-minute lap time. You got to really hustle here to even get 7 laps in. So I think in terms of the starting pressures, you're going to be very aggressive here in terms of how you set these cars up with the tires to be able to get that performance early in this run this morning.
K-PAX Racing has been the story of the season so far, and for more on the California-based team, let's go down to the pit lane and Amanda.
We talk about K-PAX Racing, and that number 3 car leads the points, but the number 6 car of Corey Lewis and Gio Venturi is in the 2nd place, guys, and only, I guess it's 3 points ahead of that Windward Racing Mercedes, so there is a battle here for the 2nd place in points, but we know that qualifying is going to be really important here at Road America. What is your hopes here as we kick off event number 4 for GT World Challenge?
Yeah, obviously, like you mentioned, qualifying is everything here. The racing is extremely tight, so any advantage we can get on the starting grid is crucial. As you mentioned, you know, we're trying to get the 6 car there up closer to our teammates, so that's obviously our goal. Try to rebound and try to get some more points back. Ultimately, obviously for K-PAX Racing is to try to be on top of everything. So manufacturer for Lamborghini Squadra and K-PAX Racing, the team, and obviously 1-2 for the drivers. So our work is cut out this weekend. The weather conditions have been a little bit challenging, but finally some sunny skies here. So ultimately it seems like a dry racetrack for us.
Well, you guys have that bright green Lamborghini that we can see always on the track, but it was a fan favorite at the at the parade downtown Elkhart Lake. What was it like seeing all the kids around that car?
It's awesome, man, to be honest. I mean, to have the fans back and to be downtown in Road America again, it's awesome. I've been in those kids' shoes, so I understand, I get it, and to have them sit in the car and to show them around the buttons like a big video game steering wheel, basically. So great to put some smiles on some kids' faces, and hopefully, you never know, future race fans or future drivers.
Good luck.
Thank you.
It was phenomenal to see the fan turnout at that driver parade in downtown Elkhart Lake. If you weren't here on Thursday night, hopefully in the future you can make the trek up here to Wisconsin, because it's incredible to see the race cars parading from the track into the downtown area just a few miles away, and the fan access was tremendous. A few of those kids that Corey was talking about were my own, and they had a great time, big smiles on their faces as they got to see some of their favorite race cars up close in person. But you heard Calvin, Corey talking about the weather conditions, and it has been changing all throughout the weekend. How much of an unknown is it today, considering the changing conditions we saw throughout the day of practice yesterday?
Well, we had a lot of rain, a lot of thunderstorms blasting through the area here yesterday, so that'll wash the racetrack green, as we call it, take the rubber off. So even though it's relatively dry right now, you still got to be a little bit careful with the painted curbs and stuff, which may give you some traction issues coming off the corners. Bit of a guesstimate here in terms of what the setup will be and what you really need to get that optimum lap time. But I think more importantly is getting out early in this session, hustling around so you get that 7th lap. You don't run out of time to click into that 7th lap before the checkered flag comes out. And I think it's going to be the last guy who gets that last lap flyer and put the hammer down, because it's going to take a little bit of time to get the tire temperatures up and get into that sweet spot here this morning.
Let's take a look at this Road America circuit. 14 turns, just about 6.5 kilometers or 4 miles through the Wisconsin countryside, and in a word, pure perfection. I guess that's 2 words, but it is a revered racetrack for so many reasons, Calvin.
It is. It's known as the America's National Park of Speed for good reason. You look at the length of the straightaways there. You got 4,400 feet coming up that first stretch from turn 14 up into turn 1. bleeding the speed off a little bit through this one that they're now taking as they come out of the pit lane as you see them. Then from turn 3 down the moraine sweep, another 4,000 feet run there too, and then you get it from the carousel all the way down into Canada corner. So The real conundrum here is you think, okay, it's a bit like the Formula 1 cars running at Spa this weekend with the Camel straightaway. You want the straightaway speed, you want low drag, but you've got big brake zones where a lot of the overtaking opportunities exist. And to get good braking, you need downforce in the race car. So how do you trim out in these cars, and how do you really run the optimum setup? It might be a little bit different for qualifying for what you'd want to see in race conditions.
15 GT3 cars set to go qualifying. We had hoped that there would be 17 on the grid. Inception Racing, who we've seen in the last couple of rounds, going back to Circuit of the Americas and VIR, ultimately electing not to be here for this race with their McLaren. They were just racing last weekend at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, so it's been a busy stretch for them. They've got some big testing plans planned here in the States ahead of the Indy 8 Hour. They'll be on track here shortly. So that's one of the stories. And also one car that we will not be seeing here is unfortunately the 04, George Kurtz and Colin Brown. Big crash for George yesterday. I understand he's headed back home for the weekend. Hope you're watching, hope you're recovering, George. We wish you were here racing at Road America this weekend. Back down to the pit lane now, and Amanda.
Well, the Pro-Am car just ahead of George Kurtz in the point standings is the Wright Motorsports, the number 20 Porsche of Jan Heylen and Fred Pordat. And Jan, you guys were here a couple of weeks ago testing. What did you discover during that you'll apply here this weekend?
Yeah, I'd say we had a good test. Just trying to do what we always do and show up here well prepared. But yeah, we had a good test. I think the track here at Road America has changed a little bit over the years, so we've had to make a few small adjustments. But hopefully, we'll see this morning, but hopefully the hard work paid off.
The adjustments seem to be lending towards aggressive here in qualifying. Where do you apply that during qualifying to get the edge?
Yeah, I think today's going to be a little tricky. Not like every normal qualifying session, I'd say, given the weather conditions and the rain we've had over the last few days. So yeah, you want to be aggressive, but the track doesn't have the grip just yet, as what we saw in testing and maybe early yesterday. So yeah, you got to push hard, but not too hard and not make any mistakes. So it'll be a tough one this morning.
Thank you.
Tell you what, Jan looks a little bit chilly down there in the pit lane. It was a bit of a brisk morning as we rolled in. Temperatures starting to come up into the mid-70s now, but for a Belgian who's been located in Florida for a while, this might be a bit of a cold morning, Calvin.
Yeah, I think once he gets behind the wheel, though, having had it warmed up from his teammate, Fred Pordat, he'll get up to temperature pretty quickly. See some of the teams electing to forgo the first couple of minutes of this session, letting those other cars go out there and maybe dry that racing line a little bit further before they take off. And with this late run, they're probably going to be even more aggressive with their tire pressure starting point. I mean, they'll probably be a little bit higher, so they'll peak a little bit earlier in this run.
I would not question AF Corsa, the team that runs that Ferrari that just was released out onto the racetrack. They swept both of the GT classes in the 24 Hours of Le Mans just 1 week ago. Very experienced team. They know their business. And out on track, Conrad Grunwald, who was pretty quick in mixed conditions yesterday in one of those practice sessions. He's at the wheel of that prancing horse. Just 15 minutes at each of these qualifying sessions. This is Q1, as you can see at the top of the screen. So the first listed driver, which would be the AMs in the Pro-Am lineups, they're out on the track now. Then we'll turn around and go qualifying with the other driver in these two driver lineups once this session is complete. This qualifying session sets the grid for race 1 later on today. Race 2, the grid for that race will be set in Q2 coming up just after Q1 concludes.
Hagler here behind the wheel, coming off another podium run at VIR. So Dakota Dickerson teamed up with her this weekend, and she's been doing a really fine job, really taking to this GT3 machinery very well, part of the NSX Driver Academy, which has got Ricky Taylor here this weekend doing some driver coaching along with Ryan Eversley. So they're really a great team. This Racers Edge Motorsport team really transitioned over to GT3 machinery very effectively, coming off a couple of championship years. Here we see Michael Dinan. He was at Le Mans last weekend. The podium run. He wasn't in the 24-hour race, but that's some GT3 machinery there, and getting his feet toe dipped in the water at the Le Mans racetrack.
His co-driver Robbie Foley was in the big show, driving a GT spec Porsche, and so quick turnaround to get back to the States and strap into this BMW M6 GT3. We've talked about it a lot this year, Calvin, the final year of the M6 model GT3 car from BMW, and its successor is here on display in the paddock. Have you had a chance to check out the new M4 GT3 yet?
I haven't, but I've got texts from people who have, and very impressed with the machinery. So we expect to see it in action here in North America later this year in terms of prepping for a full season assault next year. Turner Motorsports said they've got 4 cars on order. So we see a little off and on there out of turn 3.
That's Bill Sweetler. This is a brand new entry to the championship this year, this season. TR3 stepping up from a single car to 2 cars. They have run Bill Sweetler and John McGrew in the past in Ferraris, but this is a team that's making the switch to Lamborghini for this year. And it's great to have a couple of cars in the AM class after the AF Corsa guys had been running pretty much unopposed all season long. We had been hearing that there was likely another AM class car coming, and here it is with Bill Sweetler behind the wheel.
Yeah, great to see Bill back in our paddock. A really keen competitor, had some really awesome years with Scuderia Corsa, winning championships with Townsend Bell, won at Le Mans, the Daytona 24-hour race. So been in action that much in recent years. But a real character and loves his racing.
Yeah, we saw these two teamed up at VIR 1 year ago, and they picked up a couple of wins in class in what was effectively a one-off appearance for them for TR3 in the AM class of Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, and quickly getting up to speed with the Lamborghini as we close in on halfway through Q1. It's Michael Dinan leading Russell Ward, Fred Hordan 3rd overall, but the fastest of the Pro-Am runners. And just as I say that, Michael DeMeo pops to P1 in Pro-Am 3rd overall. Great to have him back after a really impressive debut performance in GT3 machinery back at VIR, which included a race win.
Yeah, it could have been a little bit better. He had a little off there, Oak Tree on race 1, but certainly corrected all of that and came through for a brilliant win with he and Matt McMurray. So Compass Racing were very fast here yesterday and looking for more success here this weekend.
Big lap right there from Andrea Caldarelli in the K-PAX Racing number 3 Lamborghini to go to provisional pole by over half a second, 2:07.160. with a purple in Sector 2, solid Sectors 1 and 3, but there might be a little bit more out there for that Lamborghini here still with just under 7 minutes left in the session.
Yeah, and you could see him exploring the track limits there coming through turn 1. There's kind of these perpendicular white lines outside the curb, and you're allowed to use all of that. You've got to have 2 wheels on those white hash marks, let's call it. You'll see that as you exit turn 5 here as we're coming through right now, deep into the brake zone. There we see the sister car of
it's Giovanni Venturini driving.
Behind the wheel. I wasn't sure if it's Corey or Venturini taking the first stab here at qualifying, but it is Venturini. They're still very much in the thick of this championship battle. They sit a few points behind their teammates, certainly 41, but it's a fierce battle for second right now. We have 5 drivers separated by just 4 points in the point standings as we see Corey Lewis looking on. There's Thomas Blaum looking at his laptop. He'll be chewing the numbers now to try and see how many laps they can squeak out of this session. There are those hash marks that you see, Ryan, perpendicular to the white stripe going up towards turn 6. You're allowed to use all of that. That will give you a little bit of lap time here at Road America if you explore those limits.
But you'll pay for it orthodontically. That part of the track is very, very bumpy, and it's good for those in the dental profession, I suppose. But yes, like you say, you need to use all that track to put in a good lap time, and Venturini had a solid one the last time by, provisionally 3rd fastest behind Dinan and Caldarelli, the sister car. They sit in 2nd and 1st respectively, but still a lot of time left. Conrad Grunwald, though, very impressive in that AF Corsa Ferrari, currently sitting 4th overall, fastest out of the AM group.
That's really quick. We talked about his drifting skills in the damp conditions, but in essentially dry conditions right now, that's a really strong lap from Conrad. So we're looking for great things here this weekend, and maybe that extra car in the class has got him fired up a little bit. Venturini backed off a little bit here, just settling back in, giving those probably P0s a chance to cool down and try and attack another lap.
Reads Conrad as he goes across the line, does not improve, it would appear, but less than a second off the outright pole speed that we're seeing, and he's got one of the DXDT Racing Mercedes. I think that's David Askew right behind. Looks like there might be some traffic up ahead for this group of cars, so we'll keep an eye on that. That might delay them somewhat in pursuit of additional speed. And there you see that traffic just up the road, the Zaluz car as well as the Wright Motorsports Porsche.
Well, it's a double-edged sword here in terms of hustling around and getting that extra lap potentially, but then running up on traffic. So if you back off, you really need to be in communication with your team to kind of time assess whether you can back off given X amount of time up and still make it back around to get that additional lap. So I really feel it could be a last lap fly here today that will get the pole.
Coming down to the final minutes of qualifying. We heard the drivers talking about how important qualifying will be, but I will say Road America does provide several opportunities for overtaking. Turn 1, Turn 5, Turn 12, Canada Corner, all are corners that we do see some passing in. This is one of those tracks that it presents a little bit of everything like you talked about. High-speed sections, some low-speed corners with heavy braking zones, and therein presents the opportunities to compromise on the setup in one place and maybe be stronger in another.
I agree with you. I mean, Corey Lewis certainly talked about how important qualifying is, but I think if there's a racetrack here, if you do have to come from a little bit deeper in the pack, Road America, I love the layout. It's really a great template for any track designer to try and use for new circuits, because long straightaways and big brake zones typically create good overtaking opportunities. Now with these GT3 cars, there's a lot of aero wash you get. You get a lot of downforce from the little winglets and the wings on these cars, so it's tough to follow, but even so, you can do it here at Road America and should be able to get some moves done.
This is the Compass Racing Acura NSX GT3 Evo. Michael DeMeo, who we talked about earlier, is behind the wheel. What an impressive performance from him at VIR in his first ever weekend of GT3 racing. A former touring car champion, but hasn't done a ton of racing in recent years. Finished 8th in the first race because of a little mistake, but had been running very well before then, and then picking up the win in race 2 of the weekend. And I think Carl Thompson, Joe Beck and company there with Compass, very happy with what this pairing has the potential to be, teamed up with Matt McMurray.
I think it was 2014, wasn't it, when
yes.
he won that championship, and Carl Thompson finished second to him. So Carl, the team owner, certainly knows the ability of Michael, and looked like it slipped through the net a little bit, but great to see him back and performing at such a high level. And in Matt McMurray's got a great teammate, somebody who won a GT3 championship here in North America last year with a similar NSX chassis.
So DeMeo, you can see the sector times on the screen right there, trying to improve right now. Down the running order somewhat, currently in the 6th spot. Really hasn't put in that flyer just yet, because he is 2.1 seconds off of the ultimate pace, and I think there's more in that car. We shall see. A couple of drivers already in the pits. Michael Dinan appears done for this session. Conrad Grunwald as well. They are 3rd and 5th respectively. Just over a minute remaining. Let's see what DeMeo can do. 209.3, 207.1 is the pole time, as you can see on that graphic, so doesn't improve, and to my eye it looks like he's backed off.
Yeah, I think that was his fastest lap of the session, Ryan, but I think what you got into here, a lot of the teams are likely to get aggressive with that tire setup, and if you think about the overall picture, what would be a great strategy? Well, maybe go out, lay down 3 or 4 laps here, and then save those tires for the race this afternoon. So you have to work with these tires in terms of the allocation for the weekend. So these will be the starting tires for the race here today. Quick pat on the back there from Robbie Foley, who's going to take his turn behind the wheel here with this split qualifying session.
Taylor Hagler using every inch of the road in her Racer's Edge Acura, currently 7th on the leaderboard, looking to improve upon that if at all possible.
Needs to find half a second here to grab that Pro-Am pole position away from DeMeo. So he's going to be digging deep here. Breathe of the throttle there as she hustles through the carousel turn.
2/10 off of DeMeo's best in Sector 1 was Taylor Hagler. Busy year for her, racing not just in this program, but some touring car racing as well.
Leads that championship at the moment in TCR competition. So she's having a big year. Confidence is high right now. What about confidence? This is a team coming off a brilliant run at VIR. Had a win, could have been 2, other than a little problem on pit lane where a tire got away from one of the mechanics. But very impressive team. Windward Racing won the Rolex 24-hour race to start off our calendar year here with motorsports in North America.
And a very busy program for Windward Racing, not just in North America, but in Europe as well, in multiple different championships, DTM, GT World Challenge Europe, among others, GT Masters as well, if I'm not mistaken. And that pairing that is back this weekend is the one that we saw at VIR with Michael Grenier stepping in and breaking the K-PAX domination of the championship that we had seen to this point between the two K-PAX cars. They had won every single race until the final one of the weekend at VIR when Windward broke through. But to your point, Calvin, they looked like they were poised perhaps to win overall as well in the first race of the weekend before a slight miscue. So that is certainly a team to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and I think by running such a global footprint of races, that's the great thing about the GTP platform, is that you can essentially, I know the tires are different in different championships, but you're gaining that knowledge. So a team like that really is just going from strength to strength on the back of weekends globally, not just the ones here in this championship. David
Askew coming up to complete his final flying lap, currently 13th. Does he improve a 2:12.0? That is a personal best, but it's not enough to improve as far as the leaderboard is concerned. So he will start in the 13th spot in that 63 Mercedes that he shares with Ryan Dial. We'll be seeing Ryan as well as all of the second drivers in these two-driver lineups in Q2 coming up in just a short amount of time. What can you take from Q1, Calvin, as a team? Now you've had the car out on track, you know the conditions. What can you do in this short turnaround to prepare to a faster car perhaps for the second qualifying session?
Well, only quick, subtle adjustments to the chassis suspension settings, but I think most importantly, probably just a read in terms of the tire temps, getting a read in the overall balance, so if you want to adjust the front to rear tire pressures as well to try and attain that balance that you're looking for. But I think for these drivers that are going to jump in now, the pros in a Pro-Am combination, they're just going to hustle a little bit harder and maybe try and wrest a little bit more lap time out of these race cars, like Ryan Dial coming off a victory here in prototype competition just 3 weekends ago. He went to Le Mans but didn't compete, so even though he's done a lot of travel, he should be well rested here for this weekend.
Third pole of the season for Lamborghini factory man Andrea Caldarelli gets that done. Starting in the third spot will be Michael Dynan, and Michael is standing by with Amanda.
That's right, he did put it in the third spot for qualifying here in race number 1. And Michael, where does the BMW have advantage here this weekend?
Well, I think there's a lot of straights here at Road America. It's a long track, so our strength everywhere we go is kind of the straight line speed, and it really works to our advantage here. Third is, you know, good place to start for the race, and I think we have a good race car, so we'll see what we can do. Hopefully we can work our way up later today.
When you hit that straightaway, what's going through your mind at that moment?
Honestly, just preparing for the next corner and hope checking out the predicted lap time, especially in qualifying. But looking forward to the race today. Team's been doing a great job. Yesterday was tough with the rain. We didn't get a lot of practice, but we did some testing here, so I think we're in a good place.
Your car is in one of those points battle for the second place right now. Are you looking at the points at this point of the season?
So it's funny you mentioned that. My co-driver sent that to me before the start of the weekend. And I did not realize how close it is between second, third, and fourth. So obviously we're trying to do as well as we can in the championship, but the goal right now is just to focus on it race by race and do as well as we can, and what happens, happens.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Michael Dynan, I think the breakout star in SRO America competition last year, Calvin, with a huge program across Pirelli GT4 America Sprint and Sprint X when we had the two different formats 1 year ago, won more races than anybody in SRO America last year, and makes the big step up to GT3. And I will say he has looked right at home from the word go.
He really has. I mean, I think he's got a great mentor and coach and co-driver in Robbie Foley. They shared 6 wins together in the Sprint X format last year, and Michael won 11 races on his way to a championship in the Sprint AM class. But he's getting a lot of track time, running in a couple of championships, obviously, and he's just going from strength to strength. So look for him to be achieving kind of the lap times and stuff of Robbie Foley here in a short while, because he just seems to be getting a little bit better every single weekend. And they're going to be tough. They put a new motor in that Turner Motorsports BMW. Felt the other one was a little bit off. They found a little bit of something in testing. So They got Jay O'Connell engineering that car, who's had a ton of time with this M6 chassis, so he knows it very well. And Turner Motorsports, always good on the pit stops, a lot of endurance competition over the years, so they could spring a surprise. I mean, for Michael Dinan only to be 6/10 off Caldarelli certainly bodes well for what Robbie Foley may be able to achieve in this second run at qualifying this morning.
They were so disappointed leaving the season opener at Sonoma, but they did take some solace in the fact that that is simply not a great track for the BMW. You heard Michael talking about the strength of the car being, when we see those straightaways, we get a big smile on our face, and I'm not sure there's a better track for that platform on our calendar this year outside of maybe Indianapolis at the end of the year. There are some long straights there, but certainly Road America should play into their hands.
Yeah, and also the corner, long wheelbase chassis, so that works better in long duration corners rather than the tight twisty stuff where you're asking the car to change direction a lot. You really don't do that a lot here at Road America. The corners are pretty much segmented by themselves. Straight away into a corner, get out of that corner and head down to the next one, as opposed to a lot of switchback like you have at Circuit of the Americas. So very different animals in terms of the racetrack, and it should suit the BMW very well this weekend.
Clock is rolling here on Q2, which again sets the grid for the second race of the weekend. That will be tomorrow. And for the Pro-Am lineups, this is now the pros installed behind the wheel here in Q2. And what we've seen throughout the season is when the pros are in the car in these Pro-Am lineups, these teams are all capable. They can go as fast as the all-pro lineups, and we get some really interesting grids for the race 2 of the weekend as a result.
We certainly do, and here's a team that's very much on a high, coming off their first victory together, Michael Cooper and Aaron Vogel. Michael Cooper now behind the wheel as he starts his qualifying run here, first flying lap. And Michael has a ton of experience here, has run with the Black Dog Speed Shop over the years. This is essentially their local track. We might have seen Tony Gaples reappear in the paddock this weekend. He may be here just watching and observing, but thought we might have seen him in GT America this weekend, but he has not entered the weekend. But certainly his team have great success, and Michael Cooper has been a big part of that. He has a ton of experience here, and probably good with the notebook and the setup in terms of what you need to achieve success here at Road America.
And brings that experience now to DXDT Racing, this Mercedes operation, normally running 3 cars in this series, but if you missed us at the beginning of the show, made mention to the fact that George Kurtz had a big crash yesterday and has headed home for the weekend, unfortunately. And again, we wish you a speedy recovery, George. Hope to see you at the next one. So just a couple of Mercedes out of DXDT Racing. This one, Michael Cooper and Aaron Vogel, as well as the David Askew, Ryan Dial car we highlighted towards the end of Q1. Why don't you take us through the rest of this lap here as we follow Michael around through the carousel now, the second half of the lap so crucial.
It really is, and this is really where you need the balance. Long duration corner, you try to roll speed through there. Then you kind of tighten down the seatbelts a little bit further to try and get flat through the kink here with the downforce that a GT3 car gives you. You see they've added that little bit of concrete striping there at the edge to give you a little bit more runoff room, so not quite as scary as it used to be. Then into the brake zone, a little bit bumpy down through here. This is turn 12, Canada corner. Traction out is going to be key, getting that power down. Grip should be really coming on strong now from these Pirelli P0s on this second lap of Michael. Up through the Billy Mitchell bend. Used to be a big bridge there, made it a lot tougher to see through that apex. Final corner, really critical. You can't overcharge it here. Get that power down early and accelerate up this long stretch here. It's about 4,400 feet from the exit of turn 14. Before you get to the brake pedal for turn 1. Comes across the line at a 2:06.5, so that's 6/10 quicker than Caldarelli ran in that earlier session.
Impressive stuff from Cooper, who is bumped down to second by this car. Dakota Dickerson now behind the wheel. We haven't seen Dakota as part of this Racer's Edge lineup since the season opener at Sonoma, but he's got his hands full here. He and Jacob Abel have been swapping in and out of that seat alongside Taylor Hagler. That was their plan at the start of the season, and the hope is all 3 of them will get to drive together at the Indy 8-hour at the end of the year.
Boy, was he hustling that car down into turn 1. He had that dancing on the brakes there. But the Acura has always been very strong here at Road America. Remember real-time racing, I think they got their 100th team victory here with Mike Headland and Dane Cameron here a couple of years ago. And Racer's Edge have had success here over the years as well.
I remember that real-time team of Hedlund and Cameron, a Pro-Am lineup holding off for an overall win, as I recall. Mike was really a star in some of his stints that weekend. So certainly it's a platform that has had some success at this track.
I think he held off the our Ferry Motorsport team. I think it was Daniel Serra maybe behind the wheel at the end of that race, if I recall correctly, and just a great drive. And I know Mike watches a lot of these races and is very tuned into the sport still. We'd love to see him back in our paddock as he kind of regroups and reassesses what he wants to do with his motorsport career. But here's Robbie Foley, just down a little bit through Sector 1 there. Sector 2 hits just after you come through the kink. Give you the Sector 2 time right about there. Just dropping off a little bit, but he's probably still getting the tire temps and the pressures up to their optimum setting right now. There was a lot of speed in there. Turns a little bit early. I think that cost him in exit speed there. He drove a slow there on the exit. Maybe just overcharged the corner a little bit and got into the ABS there and just washed him out wide. Little crest here and a little bump right as you turn in. It's like you go over a little hump there as you're trying to get the car turned in. So if you're too aggressive, you can just miss that turn-in point. But just a fabulous circuit. Really a little bit of everything. You have to execute every step along the way. 14 corners, big lap.
Foley got bumped down to third just a few moments ago by Jan Heylen. Does he improve? 207.2, that is right there.
Second off his best though,
yes.
So maybe he's pushing a little bit too hard, or maybe the tires have already peaked. These teams are going super aggressive here as we see Jan Heylen started the year with a win. Had 5 second-place finishes in this class, so super consistent, and with that have the championship lead, and their nearest pursuers, Colin Brown and George Kurtz, aren't competing here this weekend now after the incident yesterday, so great opportunity for this team from Wright Motorsports to really extend this championship lead this weekend.
They come into the weekend 28 points up on that 0-4 tandem that, like you said, is not going to be able to participate this weekend, so it figures to be a big opportunity. Heylen right now 36 thousandths of a second off of pole. Dakota Dickerson holding that spot for the moment. Philip Ellis a moment ago just jumped up around Cooper to get back into fourth here in the early stages of qualifying, just past the halfway mark.
Talk about how busy some of these teams, our drivers are at this stage of the year with the Nashville SRO weekend. Wright Motorsports had 2 teams in operation, 43 team members, 8 transporters, 6 cars at 2 different racetracks. That's a lot of juggling.
That was unbelievable. And Charlie Luck, who runs for Wright Motorsports team, GT America powered by AWS, had a nice weekend there. We'll be seeing him in action later on this weekend, but the focus now on GT World Challenge America, and just dropping the left side wheels off in the final corner was Jan Heylen. That should cost him some time coming up this hill. We'll see just how much as he comes across.
Yeah, 3/10 off his best, so maybe that little bobble there, maybe he's peaked. He was digging deep. Let's take another look at it. This is turn 14. Just where the patch changes color there with the resurfacing, just really on the power early, uses all of the curbing and a little bit more. And the lesser driver may have lost control there or panicked a bit, but Jan just kept the hammer down, but now he's backed out of it. See if he can reset here a little bit. He'll know if there's anything left in those tires to give him the optimum performance. Fuel burn is going on at the same time, so the car gets a little bit lighter, so if the tires can't hang with you, there is still potential for a better lap. Really
interesting how quiet of a session it has been so far for this team. K-PAX Racing, Jordan Pepper, the best placed of the K-PAX cars. He's in 6th, while this car here with Corey Lewis driving is all the way down in 10th. Not what we've come to expect from this team.
No, a couple of seconds off the fast time right now in this session, so maybe Corey's just trying to put together that last lap flyer or late flyer. 3 car here of Jordan Pepper. Spoke to Thomas Blam during the week. He said, we're a little bit concerned. We've had results, but we've really been struggling for straightaway speed. They did a 2-day test. Not sure if they came up with any results from an aerodynamic standpoint, or they're pointing their fingers at some engine issues, but both cars haven't seen the same straightaway speed of some of the other Lamborghinis in the field even, so trying to figure that one out.
And if that's still the case, this is the place where that would manifest itself. No question about that. Taking a peek here at Jordan Pepper, South African driver behind the wheel. Spent a couple of years racing for Bentley, and that's how the relationship with K-PAX was struck up, and when they decided to make the switch to Lamborghini with Bentley scaling back its GT racing efforts, basically curtailing all factory racing and slowly winding down customer support, the decision was made to go to Lamborghini, and Jordan was so impressive last year that K-PAX and Darren Law and everybody involved thought this is a guy we need to hitch our wagon to.
Yeah, they really believed in him. Could certainly see his pace and just how he raced. Just such a great passer of cars during multi-class racing. Now we look at the Windward racing team coming off that win at VIR. Philip Ellis now back behind the wheel. He had a GT Masters conflict, I believe, that weekend. Precluded him from being there, and Grenier took his spot there with Russell Ward.
That's right, and on an earlier entry list, they had Grenier listed alongside Ward, but the change has been made, so Philip Ellis piloting this car now. Busy schedule for him, racing here in the States. He's got some DTM duties in the new GT3 format of that championship, plus GT Masters, like Calvin mentioned. Very fast driver, but he's backed out of it here, getting out of the way to allow Ryan Dial through. Ryan Dial currently in 9th at the moment, looking for a bit more pace.
He's still hustling. I'm sure if Ellis is going to bail here in pit and trying to save those tires a little bit, but Ryan's still on a flyer, it looks like. We'll see the predictive. He'll know whether he's got one here potentially to beat his previous best, which is a 207.4, about a second and a half off pole position right now. He's not there. So that was the 208 flat, so seems like these tires are really producing the lap times early in the run, Ryan.
That is interesting to note. And it's making it difficult to see much improvement late in the session. It seems like a lot of the teams have come to that realization as well, because drivers placed 1st through 7th right now are all shown as in the pit lane. Madison Snow also in the pits in the Zalus car. That's all the way back in 11th as it stands. Corey Lewis has just pulled in. He is back in 10th. So Giacomo Alto is still out in one of the K-PAX. Actually, that's the TR3 car, excuse me. Looks like everyone from K-PAX is in. This is JC Sada behind the wheel of AF Corsa's Ferrari, and here Ryan Dial going a little bit long into turn 5, and might just be headed back to the paddock, the scenic route. Perhaps maybe something wrong with that race car that has led him to pull it into the infield.
Potentially could be out of fuel, maybe. I mean, he's the second guy to go, and want to run the cars as light as possible, so maybe they just misjudged it with another lap potentially left there if he felt a little cough or was having to hit the reserve early in the lap.
Race Vision powered by AWS, those crucial top speeds. This is overall between the different classes. Interesting to see the Acura quickest of all. Matt McMurray, 162 miles per hour top speed. Ryan Dial in that Mercedes we just saw pull off 159, and it drops down substantially after that.
That may have been on that particular lap,
yes,
with drivers maybe bailing and coming back to the pit lane, because you wouldn't typically see that big a delta between the various manufacturers, and we certainly would feel we'd see the BMW in the mix as well in terms of straightaway speeds.
JC Sada currently 15th, looking for a little bit more. Currently, he is a second off of the class pole in the AM class. This is the car that's been competing for the full season. John McGrew in the TR3 car that has been added for this weekend, and we expect to see for the duration of the season. There's a look at the provisional pole man, Dakota Dickerson. How impressive is he? A lot of open wheel experience, and in fact, if you go back to the spring, there was so much talk about Jimmy Johnson going IndyCar racing, and he went and tested an F3 car, and his driver coach in those F3 tests was none other than Dakota Dickerson. That speaks volumes.
It really does, and this pole position speaks volumes as well to Pip Heylen to the pole here. Robbie Foley had a nice lap there at the end, 206.2, so only 0.3 off. So it's going to be a shootout here this afternoon when the co-drivers will start the race, and particularly for tomorrow. But there's some weather forecast for tomorrow to come back in, so who knows what the conditions will be like.
That's half the fun of this place, I think. You never quite know what you're going to get. I know a few years ago we had a river forming in the pit lane. We had so much rain coming down. looked like we might be headed that direction yesterday before it cleared up. Checkered flag has flown. There are still a few cars on track. They'll be allowed to complete their flying laps if they are still pushing. I know Vesko Kozarov is on track in the Reardon Racing Lamborghini, currently back in 13th. Also the 10 car of John McGrew, the provisional pole sitter in AM, is just exiting the carousel right here for AF Corsa. 61 car of JC Sada actually is the car we're looking at here, about to enter into the carousel. Also, the last car, I think, still out on a flyer and is, again, about 1 second off of the class pole as it runs.
Pushing, you can hear him kind of cracking the throttle there through the carousel till he kind of feels the car bite. He wants to roll the rest of that speed through. You kind of play chicken with yourself a little bit, but if you do it too much, you can actually unsettle the balance of the car by lifting off the gas pedal. You're just kind of lifting the nose at the same time. You don't keep it planted there, so be very smooth with that throttle application.
Into the heavy braking zone, Canada corner, turn 12. Using all those rumble strips on the exit then. This is a spectacular part of the track to watch as a spectator, watching these cars zip up the hill through Thunder Valley, Billy Mitchell Bend, and then the run to turn 14 right here really shows the speed of these GT3 cars. The readout must not be positive because JC is going to head to the pit lane, and that concludes qualifying for our pair of GT World Challenge America races here this weekend. Did get an update, by the way, on Ryan Dial from Amanda in the pit lane, and he is reporting shifting issues. So looks like he will start in the 9th spot for race number 2 of the weekend. But pole position overall goes to the Pro-Am pairing from Racer's Edge. Dakota Dickerson gets it done. He'll share that car with Taylor Hagler. Jan Heylen by just a whisker slots in second, 36 thousandths of a second, the difference between those two. Then the first of the pro cars, and it's Robbie Foley getting the most out of the BMW package. Windward Racing winners at VIR with Philip Ellis will start 4th overall, second in class. Michael Cooper, along with Aaron Vogel, in the number 19 Mercedes from DXDT Racing, completes the top 5. But you got to go all the way back to 6th, Calvin, to find the first K-PAX Racing car where Jordan Pepper has qualified the number 3 machine.
Yeah, I mean, that's a bit of a surprise, to be honest with you, to see both their cars well down the order. Corey didn't have a great run in the 6 car either, and we've seen it earlier this season where they haven't qualified well, but they seem to execute well in terms of race conditions, but certainly have their work cut out here this weekend.
Let's hear from the pole sitter. Dakota Dickerson is standing by with Amanda.
And he's in his first race back since Sonoma with Racer's Edge. And he did tell me there's a big grin underneath that helmet. But Dakota, you took this Acura all the way to the number 1 spot. What did you find out there that you knew that you had the performance?
Oh, honestly, this Acura NSX GT3 Evo is fantastic around Road America. Racer's Edge gave me a great car. And it's just a true testament to the HPD GT3 Academy. Coming up through that program last year prepared me for this. Getting my feet wet at Sonoma was awesome, but now being able to take the pole position here at Road America feels great.
There's always a benefit of being in that pole position, but what is it here?
It's amazing. I think it'll be a new experience for me leading a GT field into turn 1 at Road America, so I'll talk to the guys. I'm sure Ryan Eversley and Ricky Taylor will give me some advice on how to do that. They've got plenty of experience with that, but I'll have my head down and focus forward for race 1.
It's a great brain trust in his corner as part of that HPD GT3 Academy. Congratulations, Dakota Dickerson, first GT3 overall pole. He'll lead the field to green in race 2 of the weekend tomorrow. And boy, a totally mixed up grid. It doesn't look too similar at all, does it, from Q1 to Q2, Calvin?
It doesn't, and that's what's spectacular about this format, where you get the driver switch. So Dakota will look forward to that starting position tomorrow. He's going to come from a little bit deep in the pack today. Taylor had a nice qualifying run. I believe she was 2nd in class, but a little bit more mid-pack in terms of the overall positions.
Now, should be a ton of fun. Thanks so much for joining us for qualifying. We'll have all the race coverage coming your way later on today and throughout the weekend. So for Amanda and Cal, I'm Ryan saying so long for now from Road America.